Welcome to the Texas Derby edition of our Skype-Off, where we bring the beat writers from Houston and FC Dallas together to debate Saturday's match. Joining us today are Daryl Lavelle from HoustonDynamo.com and Robert Kasner, who writes for FCDallas.com. So Daryl, we're going to start with you today because Houston pulled out a dramatic draw at home on May 28th in leg one of the Texas Derby. Give us a quick recap of that match.
What was a draw? They drew 2-2 in Houston. It was a big, actually one of the bigger matches for the Dynamo this year. They went down a man in the 73rd minute, and that was just after Ugo Ihemelu put FC Dallas up. But in I think the 87th minute, Brad Davis and Colin Clark unlocked the defense. Colin Clark made a very good move, and Brad Davis made one of the passes that he's known to make. And Clark beat Hartman for the equalizer there late, and that's actually been one of the things it's been a trend for the Dynamo this year is pulling results out late.
Okay, Robert, FC Dallas was shut out for the second straight game on Saturday night against New York. So give us a sense of what the team's mindset is like going into this rivalry match.
Well, they're definitely going to be ready for it. Heinemann said after Saturday's game that he saw discouragement on his players' faces for the first time. The team said they exerted a lot of energy against the Red Bulls in that loss. But there are still a lot of positives to take from it. They're getting lots of offensive opportunities. Andrew Jacobson was saying it best yesterday. He said, the encouraging thing is that we're getting scoring opportunities. We're just not putting them away. And unfortunately, that's the biggest part of soccer is putting the ball in the back of the goal. So hopefully they have a bank of goals waiting for them, and they'll all pour out on Saturday. The guys are going to be ready. They're going to be pumped. And it should be a very entertaining match with the return of Breck Shea and Marvin Chavez on the flanks.
Daryl, the Texas Derby is in its fifth year now, so I'm curious to know what your favorite moment in the rivalry has been.
My favorite moment actually came as a fan was back in 2007. I was actually in the stadium when the Dynamo beat you guys in the playoffs. You guys were up 2-0 on aggregate going into halftime of that second leg, and the Dynamo scored 4 in the second half, including Ching knocking in the winner. I think the 97th minute, 96th minute, and then Brad Davis finished you guys off a few minutes later on a free kick. That was one of those games between the two teams where it seemed like everybody got a yellow card. I think there were 11 cautions given in that game, if my memory serves. It was a great atmosphere, and so that's actually my fondest or best memory.
Okay, so Robert, what about you? What is your favorite moment in the Texas Derby?
There's lots of them. Earlier this year, I think of the 4-0 spanking that FC Dallas took, but it was pretty physical, and Jair Benitez was really into the match. That's certainly a point I remember. But I have to go back to last May of 2010 when FC Dallas got their first win at Robertson Stadium in team history. Ugo Ihemelu with the late goal. It was also our first win of the 2010 season, and it got us off to that awesome winning streak that we had en route to MLS Cup. So last May 2010 when we beat the Dynamo 1-0 down in Houston at Robertson Stadium, I don't think there's been a better moment in the rivalry from an FC Dallas standpoint.
Daryl, there has been a lot of banter between the two front offices, so I'm going to give you your chance to weigh in. What makes Houston a better city than Dallas?
Well, it's easy for me because I'm a native Houstonian. To be honest, I think the easy thing to say is that the Houston City Council actually worked with the Dynamo to build a stadium, actually close to the city, within the city. The Dallas people kicked you guys out to Frisco, which is awful for your franchise. To be honest, it's tough to be 40 miles away from your fan base. But I think that's a big difference. Maybe we are really a better soccer city here in Houston. So the city council may be better in any case. I was actually, speaking of the Frisco thing, playing out there has got to be tough for you guys. So I think that's a big thing for me is why Houston's better than Dallas. Secondly, it's just Dallas. Really, it's the land of spray tans and affliction T-shirts. So, I think Dallas accounts for like 80% of affliction's business. So,
Daryl, these are some low blows. These FC Dallas fans are going to have something to say about this, I think.
Well, that's not a problem for me because I was going to come up for the game this weekend, but I plugged Frisco, Texas into my GPS, and the little woman responded, "Where's that?"
Oh, low blow.
All kidding aside, Dallas is an okay city. I just personally prefer Houston.
Wow. Okay, Robert. Well, that is some pretty tough talking from Daryl. So you've got to have your say. Why is Dallas a better city than Houston?
So many things come to my mind. The first thing that I think of is the fact that we have the current NBA basketball champion Dallas Mavericks in our city. Our city council never kicked a football team out of our city like the Oilers had to do back in the day. We still have the Dallas Cowboys. We're still proud to call them our football team and America's football team. Nobody talks about South Texas as being a hotbed for soccer talent. It's always about North Texas and what FC Dallas is doing. And I also have a picture of a guy who was on trial with the Dynamo, Daniel Cruz. How unhappy does he look in that jersey? He does not want to be there. He doesn't like the colors. He's wishing he was in a better place, and look where he is now, in an FC Dallas uniform. There's also the obesity rates. Texas, one of the most obese states in the country. Well, that's all in part to Houston, where 59%, according to the Greater Houston Obesity Prevention and Treatment Resources, that is my source, 58% of adults and 39% of children are in fact obese in the Greater Houston area. You know, we like to call ourselves fit, and we pride that up here in North Texas, so I'll take that one to the grave with me. Dallas is a much better city than the southern counterpart of Houston.
Wait, Houston has their own obesity council?
They have their own, that's what my source tells me. They have their own treatment facility. So if you need help, Houstonites or Houstonians, whatever you are, please, there you go.
Okay, Daryl, well, we're going to come back to you because Houston is trying desperately to hang on to a playoff spot. You're currently in third in the wild card race. How critical is this match for the Dynamo?
Well, you know, to kind of pair Dominic Kinnear, I think they're all critical at this point. They have 4 games left, which is actually a pretty tough situation for them because so many teams behind them have games in hand. I think DC United has 3 games in hand on the Dynamo right now. So they're all important. They have 2 on the road, 2 at home. I don't want to say this is a must-win match, as weird as that may sound. I think their home games are must-wins. However, getting a win this weekend will give them some leeway. It's like found money for them. So a win would be huge. So in that sense, it's very critical. A draw would help. Now, a loss, on the other hand, that's a different story. I think a loss this weekend turns the next 3 games into must-wins for them. So it's very critical for them to get every possible point, considering the state they're in the playoff race. Bottom line is they really don't have any mulligans left. So getting a weekend win for them is critical.
Well, Robert, this is a big game for FC Dallas too. They've fallen out of third in the Western Conference. They're into the first wild card slot, meaning they're risking a play-in game. So how important do you think this game is for FC Dallas to get back on track for the playoffs?
It's huge. They have to get the 3 points on Saturday. Anything less than 3 points is going to be deemed a failure. The team hasn't lost these kinds of games like they did the Red Bulls in the Revolution all year, dating back to April when they had the 2 shutout losses. They don't like to lose. Hyman has this culture of winning. Daniel Hernandez, Ugo, Kevin Hartman, those guys are going to get everybody else pumped up. I know they had a little veteran meeting yesterday amongst the guys trying to right the ship, so you can count on the veterans getting everybody ready for that match. And then, like I said earlier, with Marvin Chavez and Breck Shea returning, there's going to be a little more speed in their step and a little more mobility going forward. So these guys are ready, and they can't wait to get out there.
Brad Davis, Breck Shea. They've both been mentioned as potential MVP candidates, and I'm going to give you guys each your chance to state your case. So, Daryl, let's start with you. Why should Brad Davis be MVP over Breck Shea?
Brad Davis over Breck Shea, first off, 2 fantastic players. If I had a vote that mattered, those would be 2 of the top 3 names on the list. And those guys have had fantastic seasons. To me, Brad Davis is just a more consistent player. Breck Shea is very flashy. I think he's actually one of the future cogs or pillars of the U.S. national team. But as far as right now in 2011, I think Brad Davis is the more consistent performer. And to be honest, Brad Davis is pretty much the straw that stirs Houston's drink. He's big time in creating it. Everything they do funnels through their wing play. And more importantly, a lot of that funnels through Brad. And it's not always pumping in balls or pumping in assists. He sets plays up. He's very good in the midfield. His conditioning has improved so much over the last few years. He plays well in the midfield, and that's a midfield that's seen a lot of influx with who's been in there with him. But through it all, with Brian Ching being out a large portion of the season, guys really stepped up. He's a leader now. He's made a point that he's taken that role on as the team's captain. And, the guy is he's one of those guys you come to the park and you know he's going to be there. You know he's going to contribute at a very high level every day. And I'm not really sure Breck Shea, if we're splitting hairs here, I'm not really sure Breck Shea brings it like that on that level.
Okay, Robert, it's your turn to make a case for Breck Shea for MVP over Brad Davis. What do you got?
I mean, it's easy. Just look at what's happened the past 2 games without Breck Shea. He played 45 minutes, but he was slightly injured, a lot of fatigue against the Revolution. They didn't get a goal. Saturday against the Red Bulls, they don't generate enough crosses on the left flank. Breck Shea's not in. With Breck Shea in, he's got the 10 goals, he's got the 3 assists. He's always dangerous running at that right back. Don't get me wrong, Brad Davis is a great man passing the ball, but going at defenders, you don't think of Brad Davis, you think of Breck Shea. Thinking of the next great American soccer player, you don't think of Brad Davis, you think of Breck Shea. He's 21 years old, getting all the national team caps and getting all the recognition that he duly deserves. And I guarantee you we'll see some more of that on Saturday against the Dynamo in his return to MLS play.
Okay, well, Daryl, back to you. Cam Weaver and Colin Clark had the goals for Houston in the first leg draw, but give us one player that FC Dallas fans need to watch out for on Saturday.
I'm going to give you 2 players. I'm going to break the rules here.
Okay.
One player I think is Carlo Costley. The guy has to score sometime. He's a very good player. He finds space. He's very good at opening himself up and getting himself in good positions. It hasn't gone in yet for him. That's going to happen. He's too good of a player for that not to happen. So I think that's one guy to concern yourself with or to watch for. Another guy is more on the set piece realm, and that's Bobby Boswell. The guy finds space in set pieces. He just has a knack for doing that. And he has a knack for finishing them off and in big situations. So those would be the 2 guys. It's kind of tough to pick between the 2 there for me, but those would be the 2 guys I would say.
Robert, FC Dallas has had contributions from all over the field this season, but what matchup do you think is going to be key on Saturday afternoon?
It's going to have to be the FC Dallas center backs against Will Bruin, Cam Weaver, and if Brian Ching comes back. I talked to George John yesterday. I was like, George, you guys pride yourselves on shutouts, on getting those clean sheets, and you haven't had them lately. And he was like, yeah, we're frustrated. We want to get a clean sheet on Saturday. And the play of George John and Ugo Himelu in the center defense against, whatever the forward pairing is, whether it's Cam Weaver and Will Bruin or possibly Brian Ching, they got to shut those guys down and keep them off the scoreboard because FC Dallas prides itself a lot on defense. And if you remember back to the first matchup, FC Dallas took their franchise best shutout streak going into that Houston game. And the Dynamo took care of that. So there's definitely going to be some motivation in the back of the defense's head to get that scoreless shutout again.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys each a chance to give your final predictions. What's the score going to be at the end of the game on Saturday night?
That's going to be a tough one. I'm going to say 1-1. I'm going to say it's a draw. It's 1-1. Dynamo scoring on a set piece, and I think Breck Shea coincidentally plays a role in setting something up for FC Dallas. And you guys got a plethora of weapons there. Fabian Castillo's guy. It's really, really good. So I'm going to say 1-1.
No confidence in your Houston boys to pull out the win, huh, Daryl?
It's not a matter of confidence. It's a matter of looking at the game objectively and looking at the way the teams play. And I think they're 2 very evenly matched teams, and I think that's a fair score line.
Okay, so Daryl's going with a 1-1 draw. What's your score prediction for Saturday?
We don't draw up here in Dallas. No, there's no draw. That's not acceptable. I say 2-1 FC Dallas. I do think Houston gets a goal, but the return of speed on the flanks with Chavez and Shea, Maicon Santos, he's had 16, 17 opportunities in the past 2 games. He's bound to find the back of the net. 2-1 FC Dallas. They right the ship and get some steam back heading into the playoffs, which we can't say Houston is guaranteed to be a part of.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Robert and Daryl, thanks for joining us, and I guess we're going to have to settle this on the field come Saturday.
No problem. Thank you for having me.